Gospel of Mark chapter 15. Gospel of Mark chapter 15. I'll be reading verses 21 through 32 of Mark chapter 15. Mark chapter 15, begin in verse 21. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him. Dividing up his clothes, they cast lots to see what each would get. It was the third hour when they crucified him. The written notice of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." They crucified two robbers with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "So, you who are going to destroy the temple and build it up in 3 days, come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him among themselves. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. Let this Christ, this King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe." Those crucified with him also heaped insults on him. Of course, this is the last day of the life of Jesus. He has already entered Jerusalem during Passion Week. This is his final week. One of the things he did when he was in Jerusalem that week is he cleared the temple of those people who were selling goods at a profit, which Jesus called them robbers in his house. He provided many teachings during his last week on earth. He talked about marriage and the resurrection of life. He talked about the greatest commandment being loving God above all things. And he also talked about the day and hour of his return was unknown even to him. Also, on the last night before he was arrested, he took the opportunity to continue to teach his disciples through example. You see there where he instituted the Lord's Supper, taking the bread and the cup as memorial, saying, "Remember me when I die in my body, remember me when I die in my blood." But also that same night, he exemplified servanthood by taking the very ones he had taught and going to each one and washing their feet. He had experienced a false trial. He had been beaten. And now in this very text, we see Jesus walking through the streets of Jerusalem, carrying his own cross, and not really the whole cross, but the cross being the cross, on his way outside the city to that hill called Golgotha, where they typically crucified criminals. And it was at this point we see a man, which is the only thing we know about him, is right here in the Gospels. His name is mentioned in all three of the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. This man called Simon of Cyrene. Here is a man, we do not know if he was a Jew or Gentile. We do know he's from a place called Cyrene, which is modern-day Libya. We do not know why he came to Jerusalem that day. We only know that it was at that time he had come in from outside, from the country. We don't know if he was coming in to practice the Passover on a journey from his place of residence to Jerusalem. We don't know if he had been working out in the fields, and now he's on his way in to eat. But we do know one thing. His life was disrupted that very day when he entered Jerusalem. See, when I see what Simon of Cyrene does here, to me it is a picture of what it means for Christians to come and carry their cross to Jesus. We had already heard in our call to worship this morning out of Luke, where Jesus himself said, "If you are going to follow me, you have to deny everything, your love for other people and other things, and you have to take up your own cross and follow me." Now we see a person living that out as an example to everyone else. Because notice, where are Jesus' disciples? They are not the ones there following Jesus to the hill of crucifixion. They are not the ones there behind Jesus, willing and ready to take up his cross. No, it is an outsider, someone who is not even on the inner circle of Jesus, who comes along and carries a cross behind Jesus, following him to that place of crucifixion. What are the things that Simon does that talks to us today about carrying that cross? About following Jesus and carrying the cross. And I prayed about this and researched this sermon today. God led me to believe there are 3 points we can draw from this today. And I pray that as we hear these 3 points, as we mull them over in our own hearts and souls, that we too will understand what it means to carry the cross following Jesus and live our lives according to that way. The first point is this. Following Jesus means we may have to bear a heavy cross. A heavy cross. Do you think it was Simon's intention that day to be forced to carry a cross? Do you think his plans were to come into Jerusalem that day to be forced by the Roman soldiers to carry something heavy for who knows how far outside the city for a person who was half beaten to death? No. I have a feeling Simon had other plans. If he had been out working all day, I bet Simon's plans were to come in, go back to where he was staying at his hotel, take a shower, where he probably had showers there, but somehow bathe with the water that was available, whether it be the bucket or spigot or whatever, to wash off, to get cleaned up. He probably was ready to sit down and spend time with his family, his wife and children. I bet he had planned to sit there and have a meal and just take it easy. He probably wanted to rest. Maybe he had other plans. Maybe he was a Jew from Cyrene. Maybe he was ready to come in for the Passover. We know that the Sabbath had began the next day, and maybe it took him a while for him and his family to journey there to Jerusalem. So maybe he was ready to come in and partake in the festivities. See, what you didn't realize is the Passover was a festival time. It was a celebration time. They partied for the 7 days. They ate for the 7 days. And it was on that Sabbath day where they actually took the lamb and sacrificed it, as a remembrance of what God had done for them. It was time to be with the family. It was a time to remember God. It was a time to see people you hadn't seen for a long time. I bet Simon had plans to do this. But Simon's plans were changed. He would not be able to go get cleaned up. He would not be able to go and have a meal with his family. He would not be able to go and partake, at least that moment in time, of the festivities of the Jewish Passover. No, Simon now was compelled to carry the crossbeam of Jesus and follow him all the way to that hill of crucifixion. Is it a heavy load to carry when our plans change? Our plans change when we first become Christians, don't they? For some, their life plans changed. You may have wanted to be this, some type of career. But God does funny things about plans of Christians. When they don't line up with what He wants, He has a tendency to change them, does it not? He will change the plans. There are those who have planned to be CEOs. There are those who have planned to be bankers or other things that I know of personally when I went to school. God had changed their plans. No, you will not be CEO. No, you will not be a banker. You will now be a minister of the gospel. And sometimes that is a heavy load to bear. But God does it all for us. We all have made plans. Yes, we all have plans for the betterment of ourselves. We all have betterment for plans of our family. However, God has a tendency to do that. I myself, even as a Christian, had planned to go into the IT field. I was going to go into computers. I was halfway through my bachelor's degree in information systems management when God came and spoke to me very clearly. Guess what? This will not be your career. Your plans have changed. And I was in the Air Force during that time. And I'm like, okay, Lord. So what my bachelor's degree ended up being was a stepping stone into my master's degree, which was not computers, not information systems, not information technology, but divinity, preaching degree. And I can tell you so many people that has happened. You plan a career, and God has changed that. God changes relationships. I think of the relationship between Paul and Barnabas. It wasn't a good relationship before Barnabas and Paul got together. It became a very good relationship when they were out ministering together. But somehow it got broken when they disagreed to take John Mark with them on the second missionary trip, and the relationship was broken. Had they planned to have a partnership before? Probably not. Had they planned for that partnership to stay together? I'm sure. But even God had worked to break it apart, because what happened when He did? Paul and Silas went in a different direction. Barnabas and John Luke went somewhere else, and the gospel was spread. Plans were changed. Plans change because of illnesses, do they not? I think of many of our shut-ins in this very church who were loyal, faithful people of God serve His church, whether it be Sunday school teachers, deacons, directors of different ministries, whatever. And how their plans have changed. They've got older to some illness, but now they are shut in at home. Is that a heavy burden to carry? A heavy cross to carry because plans have changed? That's one thing we can learn from Simon today is he's carrying that cross. As Christians, yes, we can make all the plans in the world. Yes, we can plan to do this and we want to do that. But the thing about it is God's will is going to be done. And if His plan includes you to do something, He is going to change your plans where that is carried out. It means that we're going to end up carrying a cross that is heavy because our plans have changed. But that's not the only picture I see example of carrying the cross that Simon of Cyrene shows us as Christians. Not only does following Jesus means we carry a cross that's heavy because our plans have changed. We don't get to do what we want to do now, if you know what I mean. But there's another point here. Following Jesus also means we carry a cross that at times can lead us into the loneliness of circumstances. Can't you see Simon walking down the street now, carrying that crossbeam that's heavy? Can you see him looking up ahead? He's following Jesus, battered and bruised, broken and bloody. Can you see him looking around all the people on this side and all the people on this side, and no one is volunteering to help him? Can you see him walking down the street and he doesn't hear any words of encouragement? All he hears is ridicule and mockery being thrown at Jesus, maybe a few at him. Can you imagine he has heard of Jesus' followers, and he's looking around to see where these men are, and he doesn't see anyone? Yes, there may be a few women following, but where are the men that Jesus has called? Where are the ones that are going to help me? Can you imagine as he's walking down how lonely it feels as he's looking at Jesus, and as Jesus is walking toward the hill of crucifixion, and all he hears on this side, and all he hears on this side is crucify him, crucify him. Can you imagine how lonely it feels as he's walking behind? He's being shoved and prodded and hit by the Roman soldiers. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. You don't think that's a lonely feeling as he's walking around carrying that cross? I couldn't help but think about carrying that cross of loneliness when I think of some people in ministry. I think of those missionaries overseas, especially those who went to Africa and served in those countries where the Ebola virus is so prominent and so prevalent, and yet they go there to risk their own lives, and they feel so lonely. They're in a place where they can risk their very lives, but they're there serving God because that's where God asked them to go. Think about those missionaries who go to India, to the poorest of poor. They can't eat from day in and day out. They have to drink the dirtiest water. And I think how they put their own lives on the line, and the loneliest feeling it must be to go there and serve a people who don't speak your language, who's not your culture, but you're there because God has asked you to be there. What a lonely feeling it must be. What a lonely feeling it is to go to an Islamic country to serve God and to bring the gospel to those people, knowing that your life may be taken from you. Or to go to China and serve God and bring the gospel at the risk that you may be in prison for the rest of your life. Think about those other ministers like myself who come and preach and teach day in and day out and wonder whether people will accept what God is saying or not. Where people take action to do what God has asked them to do. I wonder about those ministers who go out and serve God, making those sacrifices, and how lonely it must feel if only other ministers know and understand the sacrifices, what a normal person does not understand. And I wonder about those ministers as they serve God and present messages, even though at times they'll be rejected. Cross of loneliness. think of those shut-ins that most people don't visit. And even though they've been loyal and faithful servants of God. And they still serve God by giving their time. And they still serve God by praying fervently for the church and its leadership and the people there. But yet it's lonely. Because people have not taken the time to go and visit Him. Think about those who are sick or diseased. And they can't do what they used to. For those who have not ever been through that situation and can't relate to those people, wonder how lonely it must feel for that ill person. Because people can't relate to what's going on. And I think about those people called by God to go and do something that their families had not planned, or their families had not intended, and their family members don't understand or call. And think back to those when they're called by God, when their friends turn away from them, no longer friends. And think about those called by God as they struggle against what the world says is successful and what God says is successful. Church, following Jesus can lead you into a place of moment. A circumstance you may feel by yourself. Think of the Sunday school lesson we had today in the primary class. We talked about Elijah and what happened immediately after God did His miraculous power of destroying the altars and the Baal prophets. Jezebel rose up and put a death warrant on his head. And instead of trusting God, he ran away and ran into the desert. And when God asked him why he was there, he told him, I've had enough. I can't take this anymore. I am by myself. I am the only one who stands for you anymore. I wonder if Simon felt that way as he was walking through Jerusalem. Where is everybody else? Where are the ones who are standing up for you, Jesus? Where are those 12 men, 11 men now who stood up for you and followed you the whole time? Why am I the only one here standing for you, following you where it's going? The place is lonely along this road. This place is heavy. My plans have changed. This place is heavy because physically it hurts to carry this cross. Where is everybody else? Where is the support? Where are the words to encourage as I follow you? Have you ever been there, church? Have you ever been there? There are times we may be called to do that because of Jesus. Or Job, through all the hardships he faced, through the struggles, through his illnesses, through the loss of his wealth, the loss of his health, the loss of his family except for his wife, so-called friends constantly accusing him. Just repent, Job. Turn from your sin. And Job constantly going, I have done nothing to deserve this. No, I'm not the most righteous person, but I do what I can to be faithful to God. I make sacrifices. God knows I love Him. I do my best to follow Him. I have done nothing to deserve this, but over and over and over again, his friends tell him, just turn, Job, just turn. How lonely it must be, even when his wife said, man, just curse God and die. Just get on with yourself. If you're going to follow Jesus and you give up everything like He said over in Luke, and you put Him number one, that cross that you're going to carry at times is going to lead to a place or circumstance where you're going to feel very lonely. You're going to. That's just the way it is. It's going to. Times when we're following Jesus and no one else is around to assist us. Times when we serve people who don't understand or accept what we're doing. Times when we become shut-ins and we feel isolated even though we continue to pray for the church and give money to it. Times when we're called by God to go somewhere or do something that other Christians don't understand and God forbid other Christians won't accept. And times when the very ones we thought would support us and encourage us doing God's work turn their backs on us. Following Jesus means bearing a cross that's going to be heavy because our plans are going to change. It also means carrying a cross that will lead us into the loneliest of circumstances. But following Jesus by carrying a cross also means we may have to endure a cross that's painful. That's painful. I wonder how much weight, how many pounds